Welcome everyone to this UPU webinar, Empowering Finance, How Posts and Fintechs Can Advance Digital Financial Inclusion for All Women and Girls. This is a special UPU webinar as part of the UPU's celebration of International Women's Day 2025. And we'll be featuring the launch of a new study on post-fintech partnerships for women's digital financial inclusion. We're very excited to be sharing this research with you today, which has been funded by Visa and the Gates Foundation. And we have some wonderful speakers here today, and I will introduce all of them in a moment, but I believe we've got a video message that we're going to feature first of all from the UPU Director General Masahiki Metoki. So perhaps if someone from the UPU team can roll the video message, we'll listen first of all to the welcome message from the UPU Director General.
Distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues, valued partners, it is my great pleasure to welcome you to this webinar held a few days after International Women's Day on the topic of how Post and fintechs can advance digital financial inclusion for all women and girls. The UPU is deeply committed to empowering women. Within the International Bureau, we have appointed gender focal point, and we are actively working towards updating our human resources policies to enhance the recruitment, retention, and promotion of women, as well as expanding their opportunities for professional development. In the postal sector, we have introduced initiatives focused on women, including the Trade Post Award for Gender Inclusion. In trade and e-commerce, and a new train post course on gender mainstreaming. The economic and digital empowerment of women remains a challenge, particularly in emerging markets, where access to financial service is often limited. Ensuring women's financial inclusion is not just necessary for their empowerment, it is also a key driver of economic growth, sustainable development, and social progress. Yet, many barriers still prevent women from fully accessing and benefiting from financial services. With their vast networks and trusted presence in communities, particularly in remote and undeserved areas, posts are uniquely positioned to bridge this gap. By partnering with fintech companies, postal networks can provide innovative digital financial services that reach all women, including unbanked individuals, small business owners. So today, we are proud to launch a new research study that examines women's access to digital finance, analyzes the regulatory landscape, and provides actionable recommendations to close the gaps that exist. Collaboration between public and private partners is key to overcoming the challenges associated with women's access to financial services, and we would like to acknowledge the support provided by Visa and the Gates Foundations as sponsor of this important research study. As we move forward, let us continue to work together to ensure that every woman and girl has access to the financial services that she needs to thrive. Thank you for your dedication to this work, and I look forward to our discussion today. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
unmute my microphone, it'll work even better. Thank you very much to the Director General for his opening remarks. If I may quickly introduce our expert speakers today before we get stuck into their presentations. I'll just go around very quickly. First of all, we have Sahana Arun Kumar. She's Partner and Managing Director at Amarante Consulting and the lead research consultant behind the study's key insights and needs analysis that we'll be discussing today. So welcome, Sahana. Great to have you with us. We have Cecilia Mkoba, who's the Postal Services Manager at the Tanzania Communications Regulatory Authority. We're looking forward to hearing your perspective, Cecilia. Welcome to you. We will be joined by Zakia Hadzaz, who's the Director of International Cooperation at the Al Barid Bank, Morocco. Welcome, Zakia, or bienvenue. That's the limit of my French, by the way. Next, we have Adzlina Anwar, who's the Head of Government Solutions Asia Pacific at Visa. Welcome to you. And I nearly said as always, but as always, yes, Susan Alexander joins us. Susan is the Sustainability Services Program Manager at the UPU. She's been part of our previous International Women's Day webinars. Welcome, Susan. Great to have you back with us again this year. Well, as has been mentioned, we're going to be discussing in part, the topic is how posts and fintechs can advance digital financial inclusion for all women and girls. And some very exciting research has been published today. And I'm going to hand over the reins now. No, first of all, I'm going to ask Susan to make some, Susan Alexander from the UPU to make some opening remarks from a UPU perspective. So Susan, over to you.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you very much. If I could have my first slide. What I'd like to do is to begin with a few facts about the global postal system. As a United Nations specialized agency, the UPU fosters interconnectivity between national postal services. Worldwide, you can see that there are just under 680,000 post offices, which employ over 4.6 million people, deliver 225 billion letterpost items, and 26.7 billion parcels per year. And 85% of people around the world have mail which is delivered directly to their homes. So you can see by this that the postal services have a wide global reach, and they're in a position to use their network as infrastructure to support the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. In fact, the post office has a long tradition of providing many more services than just delivering mail. Traditionally, these range from financial services, postal banks, and a variety of government services from passports, identity and licensing services to insurance. And so here on this slide, we have a study which came out of the COVID-19 pandemic because the post office expanded to many other essential services at that time. And today provide logistics services to deliver vaccines, medication, other supplies, promotes health programs, targets underserved populations for education, circular economy, financial inclusion, digital inclusion, and gender equality. The UPU has published this information on these services in its guide to postal social services, available at the link that's shown on the screen. The UPU's postal operators continues to seek out ways to provide inclusive services to their communities, including various services to smooth the path forward in e-commerce. Governments and regulatory agencies strive to provide the necessary environment for such services to thrive. Working together, these institutions can remove obstacles encountered by women so that access to financial services can be improved. Today, as we've mentioned, we're launching this study sponsored by Visa and the Gates Foundation and conducted by Amarante Consulting. Post-fintech partnerships to overcome gender inequality through access to digital postal financial services. And this is now available on the homepage of upu.int. It's clear that we cannot achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals without gender equality, and that we can't reach gender equality without financial inclusion. Women are 50% of the potential customers for the Post. So it's in the Post's interest to enter into partnerships which can help them adapt to women's needs. In the developing world, women typically have less access to financial services, partly because they live in rural or underserved areas, whereas financial services tend to be more accessible in central urban areas. However, as we'll see in the discussion today, offering digital financial services alone is not the complete solution. First, particularly in some areas of the globe, there needs to be awareness raising to point out the benefits of the inclusion of women in efforts to increase economic growth in underserved areas. We'll also see that women are typically not as computer literate or well-versed in finance options as men. This study we'll examine today shows that the Post and technology-first companies that provide financial services or platforms are uniquely suited to form partnerships that focus on women's needs to increase the gap, or to decrease the gap rather, between women and men with regard to inclusive finance. Of all the services that Post can offer, financial services are those that can show the most direct improvement in access for women. The increase is tangible, measurable, and contributes to the local economy by allowing women equal access to financial services. Our distinguished panel members will give us insight into one particularly effective way to provide them. Now, let me hand the microphone back to you, Ian.
Thank you very much, Susan. There's some very interesting comments there about the reach of the postal network, and we'll find out, as you said, as we go through this session today, how the Post can help with this issue or this topic of financial inclusion. Our next speaker is Sahana Arun Kumar. Sahana is partner and managing director at Amarante Consulting, as Susan just mentioned. She's the lead research consultant behind the study's key insights and needs analysis. And Sahana has over 16 years of experience working across public and private sector entities on digital transformation and innovation projects aimed at fostering sustainable and inclusive growth, and her work has taken her to multiple emerging markets across Africa, the Middle East, Asia, and Latin America. And Sahana, I'm not going to list all the languages you speak because I'll feel woefully inadequate if I do. But perhaps if I can just throw to you with an opening question, please. I understand that this research that you've conducted and that you're going to give us some insights into today was conducted with direct engagement with women in these postal markets. It wasn't just sort of an exercise in desktop research. So can you just give us an overview, please, of some of the key insights from the study and some of the main takeaways you found from this? Anyway, enough of my chat. I'll hand it over to you. So, Sahana, I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thank you so much, Ian, and it's very exciting to be here today. Thank you, UPU, for organizing this. Thank you all for being here. I'm particularly excited to share some insights from this report that has been now officially released, and we'll talk through some of the aspects Ian described. We had a very iterative process all along the study, and it's especially close to my heart because it is a global study. It goes across all different regions, looking into emerging markets. But I wanted to start with, and we've heard a lot, from the Director General of UPU, from Susan, we've heard a lot about tangible results, tangible ways in which, including women financially can actually help the economy and the overall GDP. And so I thought it would be interesting to start with, why gender equality in financial services. And we have some staggering figures for you here. Advancing gender equality could add $12 trillion to global GDP by 2025. So this is obviously, a study that was done, targeting 2025. If we have done our job with, gender equality in financial services, we should have been enjoying this additional GDP. Just think if we actually were to advance a lot more faster and accelerate towards gender equality in financial services, we would be actually creating so much more wealth. There is another statistic which is staggering, that the financial sector could actually unlock $700 billion in annual revenue if they were to offer financial services to women at the same rate that they offer to men. So this is another very staggering, number. If you weren't convinced yet, women reinvest 90% of their income into their families and communities. We compare it to 30-40% of men, but the point being that you finance a woman and you have more direct economic impact to households and to communities. But with all this, statistics and all this going for us, we still see that there is a huge financial gap, limiting women-led businesses, especially in emerging markets. $1.7 trillion financial gap. So there is a lot of demand for loans. There's a lot of demand for building businesses, for growing businesses, but women are still not able to access and tap into that fully. Financial service providers are not able to provide for that fully. I'll talk a bit about the methodology of the study, if we go to the next slide. So obviously a classic study, right? We look at the demand side, the supply side, and the enabling environment or the ecosystem. But what made this study particularly challenging and also so very rewarding because of that is that each of these circles, you have a myriad of different dynamics. Looking at women, of course, we looked at underserved women, unserved women. We had to look at their behavior, barriers to accessing even digital channels, but finance. Do they have trust issues? Do they have social cultural norms that, inhibit them? Is there enough service provision adapted to them? So there was a lot going on the demand side, and we'll see in a minute the different segments we unearthed. On the supply side, you have a variety of different service providers, from banks to microfinance to fintech to postal financial service offerings. And we see how they design for women, on what the challenges they face. And of course, all of this is sitting in an ecosystem, in an environment that encompasses regulatory, capacity building, infrastructure, last mile outreach, and of course, a lot of other dynamics, which change from market to market. If we look a bit further into our approach on the next slide, we'll see that it was a very iterative approach. So what we wanted to do is actually at every step try and corroborate back to some amount of input and feedback that we were getting. So we, divided into 3 phases. Discovery phase was all about gathering as much data as we could, that's already out there. We did do a survey with postal operators. That was quite exciting. We disseminated to 103 posts. Of course, we had a response rate that we would have wanted to be higher, but we got 16% response rate there. But we had also talked to some other posts, and you will see as we move along. We also did some discovery KIIs to kind of unearth what different, gender experts, regulators, fintechs, post offices were saying about the issue. And we also tried to filter down then where exactly we would do a bit more of a deep dive in the research. We did primary data collection through focus groups and KIIs. We engaged with fintechs, and we ensured that we had a diverse representation, because remember I said this is a global study, so we really wanted to capture as much as possible in diverse market environments. And then, of course, we had the analysis. We did some validation KIIs because we wanted to come back to some of these experts with data collected and sense check how they felt about it. So in the end, we had responses from about 16 posts through a survey, 10 posts through KIIs, 16 fintechs, 7 regulatory, or what we call enabling actors. And we did do 14 focus groups, which was the part I enjoyed the most, covering 6 countries: India, Indonesia, Mexico, Morocco, Senegal, and Uganda, covering 125 women. So that was quite interesting to see the different dynamics between the countries. If we move to the next slide, I'll take you through, I think, the segments. Yes, so the study unearthed 4 different segments of women in low and middle income countries. And we see, and people do say, women have diverse financial needs, and we'll see a little bit why we say so. We have 4 segments in the study: non-working women who don't have a job, who don't earn income; small-scale informal entrepreneurs, so these are your micro businesses; women in formal employment. There are some, in some countries, there are more women having employment than others. And then women farmers. We found that as we go rural, there's a lot of farming and agriculture activity. I've put some key challenges and needs over here. I won't go through them all in detail, but what you will find is a lot of the times There is either dependency on family members for financial support, there's unpredictable or very seasonal income fluctuations, so it makes it very difficult to save regularly. Even when they're earning regularly, they struggle to, find and understand the right savings and investment practices for them. And how do you actually match cash flows when you're managing household and other needs are some of the challenges. And of course, each segment has very specific needs, right? So of course, we need access, but small-scale informal entrepreneurs would probably need more access to microloans and support in how to manage this repayment and their cash flow, manage a bit their business, than a woman in formal employment that probably needs more tailored guidance on how to manage her salary better, how to save better for the family or rainy day. If I take the example for farmers, for example, they obviously want to align their credit and saving cycles that mirror their agriculture cycles, depending on what crop they're, involved in or growing. So this takes quite a bit of tailoring and adaptation from the financial services side to really understand, okay, which segment am I dealing with? What is that segment's revenue cycle? What is that segment's need? And how do I tailor and innovate my savings, credit, insurance, or any other financial product to specifically meet her needs? I have a small note at the bottom of the slide, but we're focusing here on the financial services. And let's not forget there's so many other dynamics that are playing in the background, such as social cultural norms. Many women have less time for work and for earning income because they have caregiving duties, either childcare or caring for elderly, etc. Sometimes they don't have access to the digital channels and they're not in capital or urban areas. And there are also a lot of discriminating policies that do not favor women. And if you look in the report, there's a whole chapter on examples of policies that don't favor women inheritance of immovable property, for example, or it's more difficult for women to open a bank account, et cetera, that can really be unlocked at a regulatory and policy level. I'll go to the next slide. And this one I particularly like because when I said supply side and I said there's very diverse players involved, well, this slide gives you a bit, what we see in a typical emerging market. You have traditional financial service providers, banks, lenders. We've put also the mobile money providers in there as now they're traditional, they're more than a decade old. We have those that predominantly have a majority of women clients. If you see the top left corner, microfinance institutions, Post, savings group. On the financial service infrastructure side, you have infrastructure that allows for payment interoperability and seamlessness and rapidity of transfer of payments. So there's things like settlement entities, national switch, a credit bureau that helps speed up access to a loan. You have international payment networks like Visa, MasterCard. We have Visa on the call with us today. You have aggregators, if you're familiar with that term, those who, group and allow access more seamlessly if you connect via them. You have fintechs, of course, you have regulators and policymakers that kind of, set the pace on what can and can't be done. You have a whole host of investors that want to invest in digital first business models. Of course, other providers, hard technology, hardware, consultants, marketing firms, content creators, etc. And then you have a whole host of intermediaries on the ground, donors that help with funding or that help with field, resources for capacity building, literacy, etc. And in between all of these are the women who, as consumers, can be just women, but also take part in this by owning, an agent distribution outlet or being a community leader or influencer. And this is exactly what we're dealing with when we want to innovate for women and want to provide financial services for women. The report has a lot of interesting tidbits and insights, so I encourage you to go and look them up. On the next slide, I think we have recommendations. So we put together what are the key things that a post office can, look at when innovating for women? Of course, the first one goes without saying. For any transformation project, for anything new, we want strong leadership. This is because we want a vision and we want to see how the post can take center stage in a nation. And taking center stage means having a voice, having a vision, being able to align and bring ministers together, bring regulators together, and kind of co-create with them to say, this is my population set. I have so many people coming into my branches. This is what we need, and this is how we can do it if you help us, right? We definitely need a DFS or a digital financial services lead. We need someone who can understand technology, understand fintech, understand how partnerships in this space can be won, understand how they're implemented, etc., and can also guide in the investment needed in technology was the third point here. Obviously, robust infrastructure, all the do's and don'ts of fraud management, risk management, etc., etc., essential if we want to scale. Adopt an agile approach is also linked to having a DFS lead, which is very much in the DNA of a tech-first company. We also put this down, very important, conduct feasibility studies. So as a post, you are in complete sync with your market in terms of knowledge, but you also need to see, where the investment is going and where the revenue is coming from. So a feasibility study to understand which technology, with which partner, with which fintech, and what is that going to give us revenue in what time period is important. I'll try to speak a little louder. Thank you for the feedback. We also thought it's important to advocate for gender responsive policies. Data is another big thing. Can we have, sex disaggregated data? And where can that come from? And this is linked to the strong leadership. How can the posts help advocate for these policy changes that is so important to unlock some of that barriers for women to be included financially? Collaboration with regulators is along the same lines, and engage in multi-stakeholder platforms, which shows that the post is very actively engaged, fosters collaboration, knowledge sharing, etc. And we see that there are a lot of posts that are heading that path and that are putting themselves out there and attracting collaboration and partnership. So hoping that some of this will talk to the posts and also to potential partners in the room. I'd like to finish because we talked about the field, we talked about, talking to women. So we've selected very briefly because of time, 4 quotes, just going through the generational, differentiation. If you go to the next slide, you'll see that we've picked quotes from different countries, but really looking at the age group and the type of comment that came through. So a focus group participant in Jakarta, Indonesia, wanted to remain anonymous. She says, yes, I'm worried about paying directly through the application. What if I make a mistake in transferring or sending process? How do I file a complaint? I prefer to go to the nearest store to help me transfer money, pay bills, make other digital payments, so that if there's any issue, I can directly meet the store attendant. This is very telling, and this shows also where posts can come in, being present, close in proximity to the customer. This is very telling of many women and even men who want that assisted service. There is much more security in financial transactions on the phone. It avoids standing in long lines at banks to send or withdraw money. This is a 28-year-old vegetable seller and a mother of 5 in Dakar, Senegal, navigating the informal economy without a bank account. As we know, Senegal has a very healthy mobile money penetration, and this is what she means with transactions on the phone. We have a 57-year-old farmer and mother of 3 from a more rural side of Senegal, Tis, well, not really rural, but a smaller city, working in the informal economy without a bank account. And she says, when you work with banks, you don't see any profit. We're all mothers, and if we work, it's to bring something home. So it was interesting also how they analyze the service provider with the notion of, am I gaining anything or not? And lastly, a very interesting one from 65-year-old entrepreneur in Guanajuato, running a home-based Tupperware business. She says, as an entrepreneur, I would appreciate a credit system that involves a personalized assessment of my situation. This is a very mature, comment. For instance, if I'm an entrepreneur juggling school, work, and a business, my time is significantly limited. Therefore, a preliminary study to determine the appropriate credit and flexibility based on my situation would be my ideal scenario of what would help when we asked her what kind of, financial services could help. So I'll leave you with that. I mean, it was very hard to choose what exactly to present in these few minutes that Ian has granted me, but I hope that this was insightful and keenly looking forward to feedback once you've read the report. Thank you, Ian. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Sahana. Very interesting, especially those final testimonials, shall we say, directly from women entrepreneurs or women users of financial services. Let's move on now to our next speaker. Our next speaker is Zakia Hadzaz. She's the Director of International Cooperation at Al Barid Bank in Morocco. Zakia has over 3 decades of experience in the financial sector, playing a key role in fostering inclusive banking services and has been building international partnerships. She's held various leadership positions at Al Barid Bank since 2010, and before joining Al Barid Bank, she held executive roles at a variety of companies, including Post Maroc. So, a rather appropriate speaker to join us today, and I'm interested to hear, Zakia, from your perspective, from the coalface, shall we say, of delivering financial inclusion. So, as someone who's leading financial inclusion efforts in Morocco, can you please share some practical examples from your own experience of how postal banks like Al Barid Bank are bridging the financial gap, and perhaps some ideas on what approaches have proven effective? And enough from me. I'll hand it over to you, Zakia. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Merci beaucoup. Merci.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And hello to everyone. I would like to keep on with the presentation and show you the case of Al Barid Bank. Indeed, this is a postal bank that was born roughly 15 years ago for economic inclusion specifically, and we also started working very quickly with women banking. Sorry, I'm speaking in French. It's more comfortable for me as opposed to speaking in English, so sorry for all the English speakers. So just very quick reminder, who's Al Barid Bank is a postal bank. We were born from the financial services reform in the postal service. At some point, the post was looking for growth alleys, and we decided to provide these financial services which were transformed in this bank institution. But the particularity that we are a postal bank different from the other ones. Why? Because since the very beginning, we had the financial inclusion duty, especially for the vulnerable population, irregular populations, including women. And this is an important target for us in Morocco. So very quickly, our job was to increase the financial inclusion with a target of becoming the go bank for the modest populations. And the experience has been very successful since 15 years ago, because today we have large key accounts. Just to give you one key figures, before the creation of our bank in Morocco, we were talking about 34% of creation in our country. We are today roughly 60%, and this is the Moroccan Central Bank figure. So this is the figure. This is the context. So for this slide, just Al Barid Bank as a major actor of financial inclusion, we have one strategy that has been implemented with 3 pillars. And this strategy, since the very beginning, has included the product offer adapted. And I'll go back to this adaptation, especially because we're targeting women. And we have these three pillars. And we started implementing our adapted product with a digital strategy. And we also we're working in improving accessibility because we are Post of financial services. So we have this Post network. We are the one holding the power of this network. Today we have roughly over 1,000 points of sales in Morocco. We are the first bank network in terms of agencies. And we have worked on a very important pillar as well, which is financial education. So thanks to this strategy, we can have financial inclusion. Next slide. And when it comes to digitalization and the new challenges, I think it's very quickly, I just want to tell you for this slide that many African countries, emerging countries, have a banking and financial environment that overall was struggling since 10 years. Of course, we needed to double down on the regulatory dimension and the digital transformation, which is very dynamic with new users, digitalization processes that are coming from everywhere. And clients, they like digital services. And we see this very clearly for women in Morocco. There's a high demand of digital services. So the problem for us was to implement the diversification, innovative strategies targeting our modest and low-income irregular populations, especially focusing on women. So the question was, what can we do accurately as financial service in the post environment to deliver services for this specific population, but also to implement one fast growth strategy for this target population. So thanks to this brainstorming, as you can see in the next slide, so based in our digital strategy, this was very global, but specifically for women, we created this strategy. With one digital strategy, we have one application that it's very easy to use, it's very user-friendly. And I'll just like to tell you a little bit on the mobile application. Thanks to this application, today you can receive remittances from all around the world. You can send money nationally and internationally to friends in the region, in the African region, and how to say. And the interface of the application is very user-friendly. And we have also created a second interface targeting the people, the women who are sending remittances internationally. So this has been one financial education effort. Digital education for the finance. We have women consultants teaching women in the rural areas. Sometimes we may have one woman who would like to, it's easier for a woman to speak to another woman who's speaking the same language and who's in the same city. And these consultants, they are especially trained to deliver assistance in digital finance services. We have implemented this specific financial counselor so that they can easily and very straightforward train women in rural areas to use these applications and to overall to gain knowledge in terms of financial literacy. So the most important for this woman was to send money, maybe right after open an account, maybe get a credit card to have access to their money, and most importantly, to gain confidence, because that's the key factor, in our opinion, to gain the trust of women. And actually, the study just shed light on this. Usually, women, especially low-income women, they are, so to speak, they are the head of the family when it comes to spending money, especially for the children. So it's very important for women to trust the financial institutions. They must trust the financial services, especially in the digital environment. It was very important, and it was an important pillar that we needed to double down. Digital financial education was very important, and that's why we decided to double down in this. Next slide, please. So now when it comes to promoting postal financial services for women, our strategy was to implement over a certain period of time a set of processes. I mean, opening bank accounts or using the banking services. So we decided to simplify and to streamline the process as much as possible. Because if things are too complex for women, we know this because of experience, clients, they drop the process, especially women who have very little to zero digital literacy. They have zero sometimes. We have some women clients that have zero digital literacy, and thanks to our efforts, they have been using the digital financial services that we are providing. We have also developed products dedicated to women. And in this next slide, I can deep dive. I can give you one very concrete example that we implemented. We implemented one bank product targeting women. It goes beyond the card. It's a holistic environment with a free account. Free. It's very important for women. It is important for women to have a fee-free bank account. Why? Because that allows us to improve trust with these women, and more importantly, these women more often they come from very low-income communities. So we have implemented this specific bank account with a card that provides withdraw money and so on and so forth. But also, this bank account is connected to the digital account. That's how our client woman can use digital channels, the physical card channel, and have her own bank account to receive welfare, any type of family financial assistance, so on and so forth. So this product is currently working very well. And we can say today that the figures are very, very positive, and we are renewing contracts, and that means that our services are gaining traction, are being used, and we see this success through the payments that are done through this card. The use of cards has gained traction since the launch of our program roughly 36 months ago. If you can go back to the previous slide, I would just like to, and that will be my last word, just to tell you that just a slide back, please. One more. Yes, over there. Perfect, very good. Thank you. So I was presenting as an example the women targeted product, right? But overall, what I want to tell you today, I want to tell you that we have one process that it's based on our pillars to promote financial services with women. And in this regard, streamlining the process is the most important. We need to develop dedicated products for women, doubling down on capacity building for the people who face the the clients, the women. When I talk about facing, I mean all types of point of contact for our clients, and also capacity building through creating specific models targeting specific populations. These modules are given through the agency representatives in the agency, and this is how we can promote capacity building on the digital financial offer. So this is the strategy that we implemented and that we're implementing today for the promotion of post-financial services targeting specifically women, low income women population. Thank you. Thank you very much for your attention, and I am of course available if you have any further question or comment on my presentation. Thank you very much, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Zakia, for your presentation, and I hope everyone was able to, those of us who aren't French speakers, were able to flip over to listen to the interpretation down at the bottom of the screen. There's a link for live interpretation from French into English. So we shall move on though, staying in Africa. We're going to move to Tanzania now and take a regulatory perspective. Cecilia Mkoba joins us. Cecilia is the Postal Services Manager at the Tanzania Communications Regulatory Authority, and Cecilia has 28 years of experience in finance and postal services and has worked in various capacities at not just the TCRA, but at the Pan-African Parliament and various other organisations. I won't eat into your time, Cecilia, by reading out your impressive curriculum vitae here. However, perhaps if you could just, as I said, give us some perspectives from a regulatory standpoint, whether it's to do with enabling policies or frameworks that can be put in place to support postal operators in their efforts to achieve digital financial inclusion for women. So Cecilia, over to you. Still muted, Cecilia.
Yes, hope I'm audible. Yes, thank you, Ian, for giving me this session to speak about regulatory perspective on digital financial inclusion. What I'm going to speak is Tanzania has played a part in digital financial inclusion for women and girls, because our current national financial inclusion is dedicated for women, youth, MSMEs, small farmer holders, and disabled people to be included in financial services. Key stakeholders in this are three. First are ministries and government bodies who coordinates initiatives and policies. We have regulators in financial inclusion who are having MOU in their operation is Tanzania Communication Regulatory Authority and Bank of Tanzania. That is our central bank in the United Republic of Tanzania. They are ensuring regulatory and the supervisory framework are in order. They provide advisory services to the ministries on technical issues, and regulator also provide advice and guidance to the institutions, which is the third group in the key stakeholders who are the operators in the financial inclusion, and associations of financial inclusions and the networks in the financial inclusion. Next slide, please. In financial inclusion, Tanzania has 3 phases on the pathway. We are addressing the barriers. Second phase, we have to increase products and services in financial inclusion. Also, the third phase is deepening financial inclusion, especially to the disadvantaged group. In Tanzania, in that arena, we are looking in the woman when is a girl. So the TCRI has started the students' digital clubs, which we know they will impact girls when they grow up, they know how to be digital financially capable. Secondly, is the TCRI also is facilitating Tanzania Startups Associations, and also innovation hubs are supported by TCRI. Also, in general, by being in National Financial Inclusion Framework, there is facilitation in Women Chamber of Commerce, Women Affairs Committee of the Financial Inclusion in the National Financial Inclusion Committee. Also, we have to facilitate women in digital capability at the Small Industries Development Organization. It is having a chamber for women entrepreneurs. And there are special desks for these 5 banks I have mentioned. That is Tanzania Commercial Bank, which is having a big activities with women, Tanzania Agricultural Development Bank, National Microfinance Bank, National Bank of Commerce, and the CRDB Bank. This is a corporate bank which is having a special women window, which is called Imbeju. Next screen. Why do we got the national financial inclusion? We realize we need to have a digital economic strategy framework, which also facilitate women. The vision of this framework is to transform Tanzanians through cutting-edge, supportive, affordable technologies, solution, skills, and all areas of socio-economic activities, with a mission of promoting a resilient, dynamic, and inclusive digital economy that will support and uplift every individual in the United Republic of Tanzania. With 6 pillars, I will start from bottom. The 6th pillar is digital financial inclusion, but people will have nurturing digital inclusion and accessibility. The 4th one will be digital innovation culture, which we want to build to Tanzanians, and enabling technologies. The 3rd one will be the digital literacy and skills development. As we understand, in digital financial inclusion, we don't leave behind the infrastructure and governance and enabling environment. And you can see the operator, who is the Tanzania Post Corporation, is having a conceptual framework for digital financial inclusion by using the government enabling platform, which were done by the law of the country, by having the agency banking services. So the TPC is providing agency banking services for the banks who are not having wide network, for mobile network operators, for microfinance institution, for government departments. We have government gateway. Post is giving service for the government gateway. For Vikoba is a small groups of women working for their savings and their credits, and also for the NGOs. Also cards, terminals and POS. The TPC, Tanzania Post Corporation, also is working for money transfer organizations and the retailers and the makers of the financial services sector. Next, screen. This is my last screen showing that what you can learn from Tanzania. For this financial inclusion framework for Tanzania, this is the third financial inclusion, but it is given the very big impact for population. And now we are continuing. We are continuing with empowering women, girls, and disabled, and the small farmers and fishers. Therefore, infrastructure development, including fiber optic network, is working wonderfully in our country. Also, efficient collaboration between and coordination structure of the country in financial inclusion, which is not forgetting even the operators, the financial services providers, and innovators. It's having impact in our population. Also, we have increased financial services to the mobile networks, and we have reviewed, in every 4 years, we are reviewing our policies and legislation, and also assessing the implementation of agency banking law. How is it impacting the financial inclusion? As I have already said, the TPC, it's having a competitive, and fintech is having competitive advantage if they collaborate for digital financial inclusion for girls and women, because it's having wide network and it is serving unserved women and girls. Collaboration with other agencies like insurance and customs can help women to do business, online business, international, regional, and national. Also, Postal can, by having security and safety facilities, it facilitates cross-border business and other business facilitation, as it is having already a framework of bridging the digital divide. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cecilia. And well, you can see the enthusiasm from this topic from all of our speakers, because we're running way over time. We've got one more speaker before we get to our open session. So I'm very pleased to introduce Azrin Adzlina Anwar. She's the Head of Government Solutions Asia Pacific for Visa, and has over 20 years of professional experience. As in her role, as I mentioned, she's Head of Visa Government Solutions Asia Pacific, where she's building the commercial business for Visa as it supports the public sector to digitize economies, expand digital payments, and deliver sustainable social impact. Now, Azrin, before I hand over to you, perhaps Visa plays an active role in expanding the digital payments and financial access. Can you share some of those key products or initiatives that Visa has developed to improve financial services for women? So, Azrin, over to you, please.
Sure. Thank you, Ian. Maybe let me take a step back, because I often get asked this question: what is Visa? Are you a credit card company? So maybe think of Visa as a railway network, right? And the money that moves between individuals, businesses, governments, banks, fintechs are like trains that run across that network. And Visa ensures that the money moves safely and securely through that network for commerce to run. And that network connects like 150 million merchants, 14,000 financial institutions, and millions of consumers across 200 countries. Now, at Visa, we design digital payment solutions that uplift everyone everywhere. That's our mission, while recognizing that different groups face unique challenges, such as women, in accessing and using financial services. Our very mission is inherently tied to driving financial inclusion through digital payments. So ensuring that our products, partnerships, and programs always keep the end user in mind. And it is by knowing who the end user is, and in this case, women and their financial needs, that helps drive usage and relevance of digital financial services. The women, like was mentioned in the study, those in formal employment have different financial needs from an agri-farmer, the micro and small medium business owner, or the non-working woman. So as we think about the needs of women and also the role of post offices that they can play as they embark on their digitalization journey, there are 4 components to inclusive finance. Firstly, payments and savings. So access to essential services for women, like a savings account, or to make payments for essential services like utility bills, or to remit money to send to loved ones. So, for example, Visa has supported one of the postal institutions by providing a Visa debit and general purpose card to aid in disbursement efforts. So it enabled around 74,000 of national aid funds beneficiaries to receive funds through the Visa card in the first year. And then an additional 35,000 gaining access to wallets, so digital wallets through fintechs, or bank accounts that are linked to these Visa companion cards in the second year. The second component is around accepting digital payments. Now, as we have seen through COVID, for example, the growth of businesses has really been enabled through e-commerce, online commerce, or even e-marketplaces. It's a platform for women-owned entrepreneurs to sell. And the ability to accept digital payments enable these women-owned businesses to expand their customer base beyond borders, thus increasing revenues. On the other hand, say for post offices, for them to also digitize how they accept payments, say for cash on delivery payments through digital means. And more importantly, we've supported postal offices with services that are related to fraud management, so that post offices themselves can enhance security, reliability, and the breadth of their digital offerings to their end consumers. The third component of inclusive finance is around education. We recognize that women entrepreneurs often face additional barriers, from accessing capital to developing business skills. And improving financial and digital literacy is really super foundational to empower the adoption by women of digital financial services. That's why Visa has a 30-year legacy in financial education. So for example, Visa's Practical Business Skills Financial Literacy Program has reached nearly 96 million people worldwide. And we also have a Practical Business Skills Program, has empowered nearly 500,000 entrepreneurs, many of them women, to grow their businesses. We also work with partners such as the Asia Foundation. So in 2022, we partnered on a program called Accelerate, which provided over 6,000 women, small business owners, with self-learning resources, networking opportunities, and a 2-month mentoring program. The fourth component is around identity. Now, without an identity, women can't open bank accounts, they can't access credit, or even receive government or social welfare aid. And that is where Visa is actively working on integrating secure digital ID solutions with a payment credential that can help governments and public sector and financial institutions bridge this gap. So it makes it easier for women to authenticate themselves and access financial services. All that being said, I know we talked a little bit about some of the challenges women and girls face around education, financial access, and the labor market. But what we know is when women gain access to financial tools, they reinvest 90% of their income in their families and communities, thus creating a multiplier effect on economic development. I recall Sahana mentioning in her interview with a woman from Jakarta, and she said, when we work, we bring something home. One great example of Visa's commitment to women's financial inclusion is our partnership with Women's World Banking. So since 2017, the Visa Foundation has granted $26 million to this effort, impacting over 3.2 million women-owned small businesses. The results speak for themselves. Bank account balances increased 17-fold, business profits grew by 10%, and these women entrepreneurs went on to hire 4 more people on average. That's the power of financial access, and that's why at Visa we're really committed to scaling these efforts further. Across all of these 4 components that I've shared, that's where Visa, who some say is the original fintech 60 years ago, can really bring our innovative expertise to the fore in partnership with post offices. Recognizing that the audience here are post offices as well, it's also about helping you diversify your revenue streams and embrace digitalization to improve efficiency, lower costs, and ultimately better meet the service needs of their communities, such as women and girls. Thank you, Ian. Let me turn it back to you.
Thank you very much, Azrin, from the, how did you describe it? The original fintech. Is that how you described Visa? That'll be their new tagline, Visa, the original fintech. Look forward to that on the side of a bus near you soon. As I mentioned earlier, you can see the enthusiasm for our speakers today for this topic because we're really running way over time. What I will do is first of all, we've got some questions sort of as a group or a panel discussion and a poll question as well. So I might ask the UPU team to open the poll. I've got a quick poll that we'd love all of the attendees today to answer while we have a little discussion here as well. So my question for the poll question is just open up. It says, in your opinion, do current digital financial services offered in your country address the specific needs of women? It's a very simple yes or no answer there. So please do vote. While you're voting, we'll have a quick chat here because on this very topic, perhaps I'd like to ask the panel how postal networks are already contributing to women's digital financial inclusion, and if we've got any successful models that we can call out or that can perhaps be scaled up. I don't know, Sahana, are you able to sort of help us start this discussion here about some successful models that have been implemented in postal operators to help with digital financial inclusion for women?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Jan. It's a very good question, and I'm sure there's a lot of us around the table bursting with examples, because there are a few. To what extent you describe success is then the question, but we have some very innovative models. I think one of the recent ones was in Kenya, where the Post has actually partnered with wallet provider to white label a wallet and offer it as a Kenya Post offering. And this is, of course, a market that has a very high mobile money penetration, as you know, with one of the most successful mobile money offerings, and one of the first in 2007 or 8 it was. But we talked with Kenya Post, and we understood that there is still need to offer what we've been listening, in this panel today: affordable, accessible, tailored financial services, and of course the Post in Kenya feels like it's in the right position to do so. So that's very exciting to see, how that offering is panning out, and that there is demand, from the customers of the Post for that offering. I had the opportunity and the pleasure to work with Post, and there it's slightly different, where the Post is positioned to play a level playing field for all financial service providers in the country. And so that means the Post started partnering with different service providers, be they banks or telecom operators, etc., to be able to offer those services over the counter. So very, very different examples there. I'll probably stop with that. There are a lot of other examples, but maybe just to hand you back the floor, or to anyone else who would like to chime in.
And it's interesting you're talking about having two very different approaches in different countries to achieve essentially the same end. Would any other panelists like to chime in on this particular topic about any successes that you've seen? Cecilia?
Yes, what I want to share with you, there is a very good partnership between the Visa with our mobile network operators and MasterCard, where when you have financial services, you can buy anything from different countries using Visa or MasterCard, and you can receive your things through our post offices and pay all the customs through our post offices via digital financial services without moving to any place. This is what I want to say. And it has already helped the groups of women who are doing business entrepreneurs, especially in Zanzibar, where we have women who are preparing massaging oil from cloves. They are selling through the online shop of the Post, and people buy from there through using the same digital financial services. This is what I wanted to share.
Thank you very much for that, Cecilia. And the idea of selling through marketplace was something we did cover was our webinar 2 years ago? I can't remember now. Anyway, perhaps if we can now close the poll. I think everybody's had a chance to vote in the poll and display the results on the webinar. Well, there we go. Very even. Panelists weren't allowed to vote, by the way, so you can say it's a very, very honest representation. It's quite interesting that it's so evenly split. Does any of our panelists have a quick comment on that before we move on? Sahana, did you want to say anything quickly before we move on?
I maybe wanted to have a third option saying I don't know, because I wonder.
Yes.
But this is quite interesting to see it so evenly spread out. Yeah.
Susan, did you have a comment, or were you just waving to me?
Yeah, just saying hi. No, I think it really underscores the need for this study, and the need for us to encourage Posts to get more involved in this area. This is very telling.
Let's thank you everybody for voting, and thank you for your comments from the panel. Another question to the panel, and again another broad question, which is more a fintech angle though. Why is it, do you think, that fintechs, or I should really rephrase it, do you think fintech companies are well positioned to support these inclusive finance programs for women through the Post? And in fact, how can fintech companies collaborate with Posts to design and grow and expand these accessible solutions for women? Does anybody want to have a crack at that one? Azrin, you're looking very shy there. I'm going to throw it to you.
I'm going to take a crack at this. Look, when we think about driving financial inclusion for women, I think we have to think about 3 components. First is access. Access is the first step, right? Necessary, not fully sufficient. Second, education. It's an ongoing process. New digital and financial technologies require upskilling for consumers, entrepreneurs. And then thirdly, security. Security is foundational. I mean, digital technology creates new opportunities for inclusion, but cyber criminals are using, artificial intelligence and all that for fraud. If there's no security, there's no trust. There's no trust, there's no growth. And when you have widespread inclusion but no security, everyone loses. So in that sense, if I, in my opening remarks, I gave you some examples about, how Visa has supported kind of access to payments, digital payments in particular, access to accepting digital payments, but also some of the things we do around education. When we talk about Visa as a network, our money movement capability now connects to 78 odd digital wallet providers. It reaches 1.5 billion digital wallets across 44 countries. And by supporting digital wallets, which are often the first entry point into the financial system for those who are underbanked or unbanked, we're able to extend the reach of that financial service to those who have traditionally been left out of the system. Now, if I bring that back to our partnership with postal offices, for example, I recall Susan mentioned that the postal network itself is one of the most widespread and accessible institutions in the world, especially in rural and underserved areas. And I read a statistic somewhere that I think in about 44 countries, post offices have more branches than bank branches. So then this makes postal offices a powerful platform for financial inclusion, just like I mentioned about digital wallets, particularly for women. So for Visa, collaborating with post offices and postal unions enables us to leverage that vast network by bringing our innovative solutions to post offices so that we can help drive digital payment adoption for women, but also accelerate post office digitalization. That's why Visa was a founding donor for the UPU's Financial Inclusion Technical Assistance Facility since 2017. And we know the facility was launched, with a goal of enabling 250 million digital payment accounts through postal networks. And we know the facility has funded, multiple projects across 22 countries, impacting over 13 million people. And I think that's where, Visa would love to continue with UPU. And in my region, we are also engaged with the APPU as well to really scale digital payments across the areas I mentioned: payments and savings, acceptance, education, and also embedding identity into payments.
Thank you, Asrin. Susan, you wanted to add to that?
Well, I wanted to throw another question towards Sahana. When we were finalizing the study and publishing it and reviewing it, it seemed to me that you were able to point to steps that have already been taken by fintechs in emerging markets where they're already targeting women. Could you expand a bit on that, please?
Thanks for the question, Susan. Yes, I mean, we have many examples of fintechs, and again, some of them detailed in the report, where they've actually taken a very intentional approach to designing their outreach efforts, their marketing efforts, their product innovation, features, characters, to specifically target women. I'll give you an example in Turkey. We talked with a fintech that had a very nice holistic approach to say, we are going to partner with banks and we're going to partner with women to be able to bring women access to market. And what that essentially means was they helped onboard the women, they helped train the women on how their products could actually be showcased online. They part funded some of the marketing efforts. They got banks to fund a bit of the others. There's actually a loan in there. And then they actually helped develop this capacity of, women being able to sell online. And this was done specifically intentionally targeting women. And this doesn't mean that it won't work for men, But it's just that we don't find enough solutions that are specifically targeting women with all those challenges and, behavior aspects that we mentioned. We've also seen that, and this is, this is quite evident, but I will state again, and it was a good finding for us, is if there is a woman at the C-suite of a fintech or even a postal organization or a fintech association, wherever it may be, a corporate organization, we've seen that there's a lot more intentionality to design for women. And simply because of the different facets that a woman is supposed to or wants to deal with in her household, in her community, vis-a-vis children, vis-a-vis elders, vis-a-vis spouses, etc. Or if we look at cycles of, revenues for farmers, etc., there is quite a lot of complexity that goes around that needs to be considered for a woman to actually say, yes, I'll go forward and take this financial service, or this is helping me. I'll refer to Zakia's presentation, and I think I saw a question in the chat box. Is there a successful postal and fintech partnership? I mean, fintech, after all, is just the technology, right? It's about how the product is actually going there and where the post helps. And Zakia mentioned many times that for the women, this educational aspect is very important. So we've seen examples of fintechs taking really time to explain to the woman, to have a kind of agent model or an influencer that can really explain and handhold to the woman. In the focus groups, we had some feedback saying, I only started using it because, my sister told me, or sometimes it was the daughter telling me, etc., because they want that validation, they want that confidence building. Again, different for different segments. But I hope this answers some of the questions. There's a lot more in the report, and I encourage you to go and, well, not you, Susan, but encouraging the audience to discover it.
Ian, if I may.
Yes, go on.
So Sahana just reminded me of something. So 6 months ago, I joined a conference on sustainable agri-finance. And I was speaking to someone on the panel who was actually a rice farmer in Vietnam. And, she just kind of took me through what her pain points were. So typically the harvest cycle is like 3 months, right? So she says, okay, I need, working capital to invest in like, agro chemicals, more sustainable practices for rice farming. And hence she needs timely access to credit. And then to be able to scale her business, she needs the cash flow to be able to pay her suppliers upfront, which can be challenging because like harvest cycles are like 3 months or so, right? So then it also impacts like any loan repayments that you take. And then because she's paying mostly in cash, she also like is running this as a farmer. She has a day-to-day responsibility, family and all of that. She doesn't have time to just kind of manually reconcile like cash purchases. So she has a full view of her cash flow. So it was interesting just hearing, some of the challenges they were facing and then just drawing back to Visa's experience. So like in Latin America, for example, we launched like what we call a Visa Agro Card together with some fintechs and banks, where farmers can have access to credit, but then the repayment cycle follows the production or harvest cycle, right? So, it helps with kind of credit flow and capital management, but then also helps to relieve some of the repayment cycles.
And Ian, I'd just like to go back to the financial inclusion technical assistance facility that Azrin mentioned just a minute ago. It was sponsored by Visa, and we put out requests for proposals, and the posts came back with proposals that were implemented, and through the entire program, we had enabled digital financial services access to 5.3 million postal customers. And of those, 3.1 million were women. So it was 60% that were women at the end of that program. So that was a real difference, I think, in being able to increase access to financial services.
Thank you, Susan. I'm going to ask a question of Zakia in a moment, but before I do, just a quick reminder that in the chat, there's a link to download the report that we've been talking about and some other UPU resources. And if you have any questions for the panel, pop it in the Q&A. We've only got about a minute left before we're supposed to close. We may run a minute or two over. Zakia, we have a question from Dominique. I'm going to read it in English, and hopefully you'll get the French interpretation. At Al Barid Bank, what banking products and services are specifically aimed at women but not at men? Is there a ban on selling these products to men, or is the product designed in such a way as not to meet men's needs? So, Zakia, over to you to answer this question, please.
Bien entendu, je peux répondre à la question.
Yes, of course, I can answer the question. No, there is no specific men-specific products by the bank and targeting specifically women and not men. I talked about a bank account with a card. This specific product, there is no equivalent for the men. I agree with that. This Leica product is for women specifically because this product is offered, is targeting a segment of our customers with capacity building, and this is not specifically for men. Well, I said no at the beginning, but finally I could say yes. I'm sorry. But legally speaking, or from a regulation point of view, it is not specifically, we do not want to discriminate against men. So this product is targeting, is for women. We could conceive or design a product for men as well, or vulnerable men if the need be. But we need to insist on all this capacity building, support, at the same time that we offer this card. And this is specifically for women, for illiterate most of the time. So we can say, I can say, bottom line, that we have some specific product designed for women. And I can maybe say something more. All women are available for everybody. And we can have among those one specific product, specialized or reserved for a segment or a group. So I agree with you. We cannot say that these are in silo, like for one segment and not for the other. They are for everybody, but we are targeting specifically women because they are the one needing help and help in better use of the funds that are available, or these mechanisms and services. And they need we want to invite them to use them on a regular basis, not like once in a lifetime, but on a daily basis. We have different cards, magnetic and magnetic cards that are offered, and some women sometimes only used it once. So we need to inform, we need to educate them so that they can understand that they can securely, safely use these cards. You know, in Morocco, we received a lot of remittance of money from people from the diaspora all over the world, from France in particular, and we implemented a product for men and women for them to be able to receive this remittance, not in cash, but on a digital account with a card attached to it. So if we do not educate and build capacities on this product, then this product will not be used properly. And as I said, only one use, one time, and then we lose trust. And again, I insist on the trust, confidence. We need building capacity to secure our transactions and have people really believe that this system is safe and secure and without any risk. And for clients, customers to use these services and products regularly and not sporadically. So this is what our efforts are focusing on right now. We need this this use on a regular basis and on the long term. Thank you.
And this topic of trust and security, Cecilia, I just wanted to ask you quickly about this because we heard a question in the chat, in the Q&A from John Samuel saying, given the vast reach of the Post and the trust factor, what is the impediment to bring the central banks and the Post towards larger financial inclusion of women, and how can we overcome it? Well, since you were talking about the involvement of various banks in Tanzania, what's your perspective on this?
Thank you. Ian. I wanted to share experience in Tanzania because when we developed the 2023 or 2028 financial inclusion framework, there's one bank which started a specific loan provision for the women and the youth. And that program, we call it Imbeju, CRDB Bank Imbeju. And it had a very good partnership with Tanzania Post because of its wide network. And it was saving loans for unsaved women and youth. So because of the TPC network, then they enter into collaboration with TPC for facilitation of women and youth. And this has impacted, women naturally, we like to save. And there was, for many women in a disadvantaged area, they are missing saving platform. And that's why the Tanzania Post Corporation now is developing the wallet for women for saving. And it is working very positively for unsaved areas. This is what I wanted to say.
Does any other panelists have a comment on this topic of trust in the network and bringing banks to the table to help create financial inclusion for women? Any other comments from the panel?
There is another thing. For these banks, fintechs develop the technical arm, but finance is coming from the banks. Many banks now are realizing the potentiality of Tanzania Post Corporation. Now they are entering with TPC, the service level agreement for facilitating women and youth in my country. This is what we have seen in the financial inclusion exercise in my country.
I think I would just like to add to, Cecilia, you said it so well that, fintechs also need the banks for financing. And this question about posts and, banks, or John's question, how do we get posts and central banks, to work more seamless together? I think there is definitely a play there to bring central banks and posts together to see how and what synergies can be built. Just as fintechs with their agile approach need the financing from a risk management perspective, posts, for example, could be the outreach or distribution channel for the banks or the state banks or other banks, etc. But this synergy has not yet been fully explored, I feel, and in a lot of countries, even if there is some dialogue, it will be good to see more synergies to really see how can this public asset, this digital public infrastructure, as I call it, can help take DPI agendas, financial inclusion agendas, access agendas, more holistically across the nation. And for this, they can't do it without the central bank and other regulatory bodies.
Now, another thing I wanted to share with you, there's a very important issue. The communication regulator and the finance regulator, that is central banks, they should have a very good memorandum of understanding to increase financial inclusion. Otherwise, you cannot work as a silo and then you want to increase financial inclusion. It is next to impossible. Also, by doing that, when encouraging the innovation for the fintechs, then because you have a memorandum of understanding, then you will like to know how the systems are secured and are protected, so that when you offer to the people who are disadvantaged, you know they are struggling to get their money, the money is secured. Without that memorandum of understanding and working together for financial inclusion, because in the communication sector in Tanzania, we work also with the Tanzania Post Corporation, then it has become very easy to open avenue for disadvantaged or unserved group. Thank you.
In terms of,
Zakia, sorry, Zakia, did you want to make a
Yes,
contribution?
yes. Alors, ce que je veux dire, c'est simplement
I
citer.
wanted to add something. First,
On a parlé de travailler en silo.
we talked about silo and compartmented type of work, which is a problem in all governments, and wanted to talk about Morocco. It's for several years. We have a national strategy for financial strategy coming from the top, from the central bank, which is a key player of this strategy in our country, because we have a large network. This bank has a large network, different products, and with the support to the governmental bodies. For example, some ministers, we help efficiently, I would say, and free of charge, all the governmental bodies that play a part, that play a role. Let's say when we have a earthquake a year ago, were helping us to channel all the help, the financial aid that we receive from the world, and we could channel this assistance quickly through wallet, e-wallet, with the mobile agencies and other structures. But all of this to say that we need to work all together holistically, and to build strategies that really associate all the key players and based on different components for the benefits of financial inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Zakia. And we are really running quite over time today. But as I mentioned before, it's such an important topic. And whilst we have talked about financial inclusion for women, mostly in the context of what's the correct term, Sahan? Is developing nations and medium income nations, is that the correct term?
Low and medium income countries.
It's not to say that financial inclusion is not something that should be, for women, is something that should be ignored in developed nations, where there is sometimes a nexus between other issues when it comes to financial inclusion. Possibly a discussion for another day. And it will be another question. Again, we don't have time, but my other question for the panel is going to be, how do we measure success? This is an important thing. We sit here today talking about it, and now how do we go forward and measure success? Perhaps something for us to mull over in the future on this, as I said. So I'll a few things then before we close. When we do close the webinar, you will be asked, the attendees will be asked a quick survey on what you think of the survey. So please tell us how wonderful you think it was. I would like to also mention again the support of Visa and the Gates Foundation in supporting this research. And as I've mentioned, there is a link in the chat to download the research and some other UPU publications relevant to this topic. I would like to thank our panelists again today for their contributions, for their preparations. It's not just that they turn up today and talk, they've taken the time to prepare the material and to present their expertise to all of us today. So thank you all for your involvement today. A special thank you, as always, to the UPU team behind the scenes who have made this all happen. Special thank you to whoever's been interpreting me into French. You've earned yourself, I don't know, a biscuit. I don't know, whatever. However you're going to treat yourself after this. So thank you to everybody who's made it happen. I do recommend that you download the report and continue the conversation inside your own businesses, whether you are a postal operator, whether you are a regulator, whether you're a government, a shareholder, minister, whatever you might be. Please do continue to have these conversations about digital financial inclusion for women and girls in your nation. And I'm sure, didn't check this with any of our speakers beforehand, but I'm sure they'll all be happy to receive any communications from you all. If you've got follow-up questions afterwards, or you want to ask anything specific to do with the research or their perspectives on any of this, please feel free to drop them a line and they will curse me afterwards, I'm sure. But thank you all again for your participation. Thank you to those who have listened to us. And, well, that's about it. Enjoy the rest of your day, whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you are. Have a great day. So, thank you, everyone. And
Thank
goodbye.
you. Thank you so
Merci,
much.
c'était un plaisir. Merci.